Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SWAGtember Show. This is the show where we talk about all things Savage Worlds from the past week, and then we go on to talk about a topic this week. This week, we're talking about Deadlands Dark Ages. So let's go and start with the newsletter for the week. We'll talk about some Kickstarters, and then we'll jump in and talk a little bit about Deadlands Dark Ages and what we know so far about this new product from Pinnacle. So jumping in to the newsletter, let's go ahead and share that screen. First off, there's a really interesting sale going on with part of SWAGtember, I suppose. And it's going to be lasting till October 6th. Every time you order a physical item from the store over on Pinnacle's website at things like Pinnacle, PEGInc.com, I believe, you can get a Red in the Rain poster, which is what came with the original box set for Savage Worlds Core. And so you can get one of those posters, but you also will get at least $20 worth of freebies that will be handpicked from their shelves over at Studio 2 Publishing. They say this is going to include like t-shirts, dice, bennies, core rule books, other source books, adventures, posters, bookmarks, box sets, which box sets kind of grabbed my attention. So that's like a lot more than $20. GM screens, action decks, soundtrack CDs, a lot of stuff. Now, I will say this sounds like this is something where maybe they have a lot of stock and they're trying to like reduce the amount of stock they have for different products. Regardless, though, this seems like a really cool way to get like some random goodies in your order. I'm also very curious though how this is going to work, considering that like you can just order anything physical and they're going to give you $20 with stuff. And I know I'm pretty sure I know for a fact, I could be wrong, but there are definitely some products out there that don't cost that much money. So not sure if anyone would game the system that way, but also I imagine that the more you buy, because it's handpicked, I wouldn't be surprised if some people get better stuff, they buy more stuff. So who knows? Other way though, that's cool. I personally would like to get some t-shirts. I haven't gotten anything yet, but I do think Savage Worlds, and I think I said this back in the beginning of this year, that I do think that Savage Worlds and Pinnacle could do a better job of doing swag. And I don't mean Savage Worlds Adventures Guild, I mean just cool stuff that we can wear to show that we love Savage Worlds. I think there could be some new designs that could be done for this. Just having the Savage Worlds logo on t-shirt just isn't quite doing it for me. So I'd love to see some other like t-shirt designs that more present that kind of like kind of the things we see from D&D, but for Savage Worlds. So hopefully we can see more of that kind of stuff. But if you want to get more stuff in your bag, this is a good time to buy some stuff from Pinnacle's website. So check that out. Deadlands Dark Ages Fastforge terrain update. So if you're not familiar, one of the things that they're doing this Kickstarter for the first time ever is doing a terrain set. So they've done pawn sets before, where they come with different pawns for different people, different like monsters and things that you would face inside of a setting. This time they're going to do terrain as well. Same kind of style, where it's going to be a die cut cardboard that you kind of piece together. Nothing too fancy, but it will fit the setting. And they're not doing it as a grid system. They're specifically doing it as, I think they call it scatter pieces. Where'd it come? I know they said something along here. Die cut, punch board, pawns, love, etc., etc., etc. Somewhere I'm pretty sure they said it's like, scatter pieces, which I know that term from more the wargaming side of things. Not that I play to do wargaming, but I know that's what they call it. So, and you even look at the pictures, there's no grids or anything anywhere. So it's definitely going for more of a wargame style, which, to be fair, Savage Worlds does tend to more adhere to the more wargaming style of not using a grid, but using inches on a tape measure to go ahead and like measure out like where everyone is and like measure distances. So it makes sense that they're going for more wargaming style, where you don't actually have a grid system, but you're just moving pawns and stuff around the board, and it doesn't really matter where things are. So yeah, I think that's cool. Go take a look at that. This is going to be the first time they do Fastforge, but they are planning on doing more Fastforge for other settings, maybe inside other box sets. And I think they're also going to go back and do some stuff for some of the previous adventures as well, or previous like settings and such. So if you're interested in that, and if you find that you do get it and you like it, let them know so they can work on getting more out there for your campaigns. All right, moving on. The last thing, this is pretty much all Deadlands Dark Ages from here on out. Deadlands Dark Ages, it has a exclusive preview over on Drive-Thru RPG for the Hexslinger. We're going to take a look at that at some point during this stream, but not quite yet. That's not what we're going to talk about right now. But Nevertheless, this is free, so if you want to get a preview of what the Hexslinger is going to look like, you can take a look at the Drive Through RPG link. I believe I put a link down below in the description, so you can just go ahead and read about it and look up for yourself. It does not have the full thing, so if you're hoping like, okay, I'll take this Hexslinger and put it into my other game, it is not the full Hexslinger and all the rules around Hexslinger, so you will need to just be aware that it's not the whole thing, but it is a free preview of what it's going to look like and how things work. All right. So with that, you see the current stages of everything that's coming. I'm right now at this point just waiting for my Abominable Northwest thing. They're doing shipment payments right now. There was a kerfuffle with the highest tier getting the wrong payment options, but that should be fixed now. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about some Kickstarters. Launching on Tuesday, October 7th, will be Starbeards. This is from Fainting Goat Games. We did an interview with them a couple weeks ago about Starbeards. It is dwarves in space, mining stuff, protecting themselves, and dealing with different situations out in the frontier space. So if that kind of thing interests you, take a look at the link down below to the Starbeards Kickstarter. Also starting on Tuesday, October 21st, will be Pear Tree Studios' first Kickstarter for Beacon Island. I see Peter Saloom is already in the chat from Pear Tree Studios. So if you have any questions for him, you can go hit him up in the chat. Maybe he'll answer. Who knows? Maybe he's too busy. Probably working on this. So take a look at that. We will be talking with Peter on October 21st to talk about this Kickstarter and do a little launch day celebration and talk about everything that's going to be in this game. To give you a little brief, preview, it's going to be basically about being a kid in the 90s or a teenager in the 90s solving mysteries. So yeah, it sounds fun to me. It reminds me of like a What's New Scooby-Doo type thing. All right, and then ending on Friday, October 3rd, so not this week, not next week, the week after, it will be the last day to get Deadlands Dark Ages backed. So you can go ahead and take a look at the link down below to look at Deadlands Dark Ages, and we're going to talk about it right now. And you can kind of decide for yourselves if this is something you want to get. All right. And that is all I have about this. So I was going to remove this. All right. So Deadlands Dark Ages. We're going to talk about that. And by the way, if you're just joining in, this is the SWAGtember Show. Thanks for jumping in. We're going to talk about Deadlands Dark Ages and what's new in Deadlands. And we're going to talk a little bit about the lore. Talk about how the lore mixes in with existing lore for Deadlands, in the Weird West, and Lost Colony, and Noir, and Hell on Earth, and all of those. And then we're going to talk about what is in this Kickstarter specifically that you can get your hands on if you back it. So first, let's just talk about some lore for Deadlands Dark Ages specifically. It does take place in Great Britain. It takes place during the Arthurian time. It is taking place specifically in the year of 877. It is not Britain specifically like how it was, but more Britain as people imagine it. It is the land that's going to be characterized by terror and being on the brink of annihilation and being plundered by raiders. Often going to be thematically recalled Vikings, but maybe not accurately as such. And the game is going to be somewhat grounded in history, but they're going to focus on technology and garb and buildings at the time. There are going to be some supernatural layer elements kind of put on top, and it's going to be more thematic, more genre focused on what we kind of imagine this time, the Arthurian medieval time being. So think of films such as Excalibur, the 13th Warrior, and the television series The Kingdom and Vikings. And as they put here, it's inspired by a little bit of the Army of Darkness. So that again gives you some context. There's going to be some things that are not going to be accurate to that time period, but we are going for more what the genre feels about this particular time period, looking at some other movies and such that we see from that time. I personally go to like the Merlin TV show, where it's like about young Merlin, that kind of thing. So that gives you an idea of like the kind of things that we are going to be seeing inside of this setting. And just so you know, I am trying to collect all the data I can from different sources to kind of tell you about this. So there was an interview with the designers on, I think launch day. They did an interview and talking about it, taking some details from the Sins of the Father quick start from back in 2019 that came with the Savage Worlds Adventures edition Kickstarter. So like the original Suede Kickstarter, they released this. So we've been waiting for this for a while. So taking some details from that, and then taking some details from the preview and from the Kickstarter itself, trying to collect all information together and try to give it to you as best as possible. So what are we going to see from this? We're going to see stuff about the rise of evil. We're going to see stuff about the Arthurian legends, and we're going to be, from my understanding, there's going to be something about the Wild Hunt. I'm not too familiar with that part, so I can't say too much about it. I should also mention ahead of time that I am not a Deadlands lore aficionado. I have a very rudimentary understanding of Deadlands. I have not been able to run Deadlands campaigns yet. And yet, despite all that, I've been super excited to run this one. I know I probably should technically run like the Weird West first and then do this, but I might run this first, depending on when I get it and when my current campaign ends, and when the next campaign ends, because the next one's going to be Solomon Kane. So, yeah. So we have some information about that, about what the Deadlands Dark Ages is going to be like. We know that there is going to be some connection with Mordred and Morgana, and Morgan Le Fay, as well as some connections with Merlin. So all those like classic Arthurian characters. And there is going to be some connection to the Cackler in Deadlands. I'm not going to spoil that, just in case that there is a spoiler there. If you haven't played it yet, I think it might be a spoiler for me, but I'm probably going to run this, so I'm not really that worried about it. We're also going to learn about the beginnings of the Reckoners and of the Harrowed, and like how the Harrowed and the Reckoners first became a thing. We're also going to have guns. Yeah, that's right. We're going to have guns from the Weird West in our medieval times game. The way this is going to work is not through actually shooting bullets, but it's going to be through magic. The guns are given to people that Merlin thinks are going to be heroes, that he thinks are heroic and will have a destiny of like fulfilling some sort of destiny. And they're 6-shooters. Some are peacemakers. I think they said that there's a cult and a lightning, I think is one of them said. And they are just taken from the Weird West and have magic on top of them. There are going to be runes on top of them or sigils, I think they're called, that will just kind of talk about like what the gun can do. And we'll get into that a little bit more when we look at the actual preview for the gunslinger, the Hexslinger. And we'll talk about more about that a little bit later. But we are going to see some what the effects of the Morgana effect were. That shockwave between 1887 and 1844. We're going to see some elements of Morgana's consciousness that's being pulled into those two different timelines, different places. And we have some we've seen that a little bit already from other things that the teams talked about. So you'll see that in this setting as well. I want to talk about a few other things before we get into like what's actually in the books. But that's going to be like the kind of the crux of it. We're going to see a lot of, if you look at the adventure for Deadlands Dark Ages that we have already, which is the Sins of the Father. I don't think I have that linked down below currently. I can definitely add that down later. And by the way, using links down below for Drive Through RPG it does help the channel. I appreciate you using those links. But in that adventure, you basically play as a paladin who has a gun, has a hex gun, and you can play as a druid. You can play as a kind of a cleric type guy, and you can talk about and here actually I have a list of some of the archetypes that you can play. You play as a Hexslinger, a Medicant, which is like a wandering priest. You play as a druid. Technically not accurate to what would have been around at this time period, but because the flavor kind of says druids should exist in Arthurian legends and a lot of the lore around like Arthur, not just mean like original lore, but I also mean it's like current day lore. Like if you watch the Merlin show, there are druids that are currently outlawed because they do magic. You have the Scop, which is like a traveling poet, a bard. It's a bard. That can do things, that can create that kind of, you can use that kind of archetype. There's a Skulk. And there's also like characters are in the adventure as pre-gens as well. So these are some of the things that you can see in that. The Skulk is like an outlaw. I think you have the Wanderer, who's just has unique skills that they learn from caravan stuff. And then you have like a typical warrior, just a guy who fights with blades and has armor and a shield. So a soldier, warrior, knight, whatever you want to call him. Let's see here. What else I want to mention? So before we get again, I do want to get into what is actually in the Hexslinger. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about what's going to be in this Kickstarter. The first thing that you're going to get is the obviously the Deadlands Dark Ages core rulebook, right? That's going to be 244 pages. It'll be hardcover. It's going to have the setting rules you're going to use for the setting. You're going to have some background information. It's going to have some additional character creation options like new edges, new hindrances, new arcane backgrounds, gear, that kind of stuff. It's going to have a plot point campaign. And from my understanding, what I'm reading through, the plot point campaign is going to be in the book. That's not always the case with some Deadlands stuff, but I think in the original Deadlands book, I say original, I don't mean the original, but I mean the core book. There is not a, I don't think there is there? No, I don't think so. There's not a adventure in here, but in a lot of the other ones they've done, a lot of other books they've done, they put the plot point campaign inside the book. The Holler plot point campaign is inside the core rulebook. So that's what we can expect. We're going to see the a plot point campaign titled "The Once and Future King," and it's going to be from what we've heard, it's going to be drawn very heavily from the inspiration of the Excalibur movie. There's also going to be some over a dozen Savage Tales. There's going to be a bestiary with different monsters that you can fight inside of this time period, and then obviously some archetype cards and such. Is also going to be a graphic novel. I got my first graphic novel through the Abominable Northwest Kickstarter. I know there's a few other ones I need to get my hands on now that I know about them. Part of it was I just didn't know about them, and now I do, and I'm like, I need to collect them all. But there's also going to be one for Deadlands Dark Ages called Merlin's Champions, which is going to explain who the champions are. Again, the champions are the people that Merlin has given hex guns to. So someone he's given the gun to, and you can kind of, those are his champions. They get special powers, they get special abilities. It is a arcane background in of itself, even though it doesn't work like a normal arcane background. It is very unique. And so from what we've heard about like the druid, or some of the other arcane backgrounds, they are also very unique in the way that they work versus how most work in the past. There's also going to be a accessories box that will include a custom deck of oversized action cards, some archetype cards, some themed bennies and status tokens, some die cut pawns that will have front and back art, and then a GM screen, 3-panel GM screen like you usually get from these campaigns, and a fold out poster map of Great Britain as it is in that time period. And then again, as we noted earlier, there'll also be the new Fastforge 3D terrain. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit hesitant about that and how much value it's going to add. I've lately taken to 3D printing some terrain. I have some pieces here that I 3D printed, and I'm actually working on trying to 3D print some more for a game I'm going to be running at Pittsburgh Gaming Expo. By the way, if you're going to Pittsburgh Gaming Expo, come say hi. I will be there. So will Bob World Builder and a bunch of other D&D YouTubers that I've never actually met before. They're invited. I'm just going. So, yeah, maybe someday I'll be invited. Additionally, though, you can also get, in addition to the Fastforge 3 terrain that's coming in the accessories box, there's also going to be a Cursed Village set that will have its own set of terrain. So that's going to be separate from there's going to be like 2 pieces of terrain from the 2 different boxes. So even if you don't get the 3D terrain set, what's it called, the Cursed Village set, you're going to get some 3D terrain anyways, and you can kind of add that to your box. So the accessory box will include 2 small houses and a twisted tree. So take a look at that. There's also going to be some premium and exclusive items in the Kickstarter. Instead of doing the usual metal coins they've done for Conviction in the past, they're going to be offering a set of 6 metal D6s that will represent Conviction. So if you're going to spend a Conviction, you can just take your D6 Conviction token and roll it, and there's your Conviction die. They're actually a hollow metal D6s. They look really nice and fancy, and they're going to come in a box that will like lifts them into view when opened. That being said, I personally am not going to be. I think I did something with my Kickstarter just to not get them and save a little bit of money. So I'm doing like the course, like everything, have the highest tier, but not the tokens, because I just don't particularly care about them. I'd actually kind of like having the metal tokens or just having something else instead of a die. I did try using die for a while, but the problem is if some of my players have multiple Conviction, it means I can run out these D6s, and it's just like, well, what do I do if I run out? Well, I have to give you more D6s because I don't have enough. So yeah. But yeah, so that's the Kickstarter. This again, I think it looks like a really pretty book. It looks like it's going to be a really good campaign. I'm very excited for it. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. There is one thing I want to note, actually, though. I'm going to pull up a picture real quick. Actually, let's go back to this one. There we go. I will say on this, there's one thing, one criticism of what everything looks like. I think the front looks absolutely amazing, right? And so yes, Deadlands Dark Ages looks absolutely amazing. My one problem, though, is that the font on this side here, on the left, on the binding, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't know why, but like it makes me think of like typical medieval fonts that you would see inside of like Word. I would actually like to see something just like this logo up here. Maybe instead of having like the D and the E, things getting smaller than bigger again, just make it straight across Deadlands, and then like Dark Ages, like then this font just down the side here. I think that'll look a lot better. I'm not a fan of this particular point here. So if anyone from is watching, that'd be cool if you could change it a little bit. I'm not just not a fan. Because like if you look at oh, actually, now I look at it. It's so you can look at the Deadlands on the side here. I'm not sure if that works. Maybe you can't see that. It looks like it's the same font as like the Deadlands on the front, but it's just like lowercase and everything. I don't think the font on the side is actually the same. So take a look at that. Curse of Yig says, I saw a pistol in the art. There must be some time travel. Yes. From my understanding, somehow pistols from the Weird West are either being pulled into the old-timey, into the Arthurian times by Merlin, or they're being sent there through some other magical means. I'm not positive on the details of how they got there. I'm sure that will be explained in the book somewhere. But they are time traveling there, and they're not normal guns. They are not using they're using magical bullets. They are been enchanted by Merlin so that they can work by the paladin that was chosen by Merlin. So gives you some idea. Let's see here. Soloric says Weird West Companion offers, offered a retrospective of the major plot point campaigns leading to the new edition. Plot point campaigns instead were offered as separate products. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they were usually offered as separate products. I think this one, so I'll read through here. I gotta read through some comments here I missed. Scaloric said earlier on, I keep hoping for a more Eurocentric take on the Manitou, reskinning them for a more classic foe. All right. And then Sway Deadlands has a more as seen last episode sidebar. Yes. I think basically things have changed between the original Deadlands and the new Deadlands because of, well, one, because they wanted to make some changes that they didn't super like, but they wanted to explain them in world, and that's that in world change was called the Morgana effect, or the Morgana effect, where things just got changed around a little bit. So, and that had some effects on the time travel shenanigans that were here as well. So yeah. Did you do? Cool. I think that covers everything. So that's my one take is just that, like, hey, that'd be cool if we did just change that font a little bit. Just not a fan of the way it currently looks. All right, so we're gonna take a look though at the little preview of the Hexslinger that we've got. Here we go. All right. So let me just scroll to the top here because I was reading through this. So here we can see here that this is by John Goff and Shane Lancey. By the way, the plot point campaign is also by John Goff, just so that you're aware. He wrote the Night Train adventure and a few other adventures in that series. He's written a lot of Deadlands stuff, just really what you need to know. So there's a brief explanation about who the Merlin's champions are. They're chosen at random. They're not chosen at random, sorry. The sorcerer seeks them to spark in them some spark of heroism or destiny he believes that will defeat Morgana and the forces of evil in the distant future. And we talk about hex guns. Again, we have some that are peacemakers, lightning, colt, but no one knows what that means. And it also says that these guns do not work in anyone's hands except for the person that was given to him. So Merlin hands someone a gun, then no one else can use it except for that person. Additionally, it says, hey, this is not these bullets are just a hollow shell with lead tips, but they don't have any primer or powder, and so there's not going to be any sort of people making bullets in this game. And we see here, we can see the little magical on all the magic on the barrel here. And it actually specifically says that if anyone uses the gun, anyone else besides the person who has the gun, it will rotate the cylinder and it will click the hammer, but it won't actually do anything else. Because again, there's no primer or ammunition. It is all magic that's controlling it. So here's the arcing background. Someone needs to be a novice, and he has to be a generally good intent. So it has to be generally a good person. The arcane skill is shooting. That's weird. I don't think we've ever seen shooting as the arcane skill before. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is quite odd. Okay, before we get any further, Skolork says the hunting ground connects all the separate settings together. Entering the hunting grounds can offer some sort of. Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's like some sort of like ethereal space that you can enter. Ethereal might not be the right word, but it's like some sort of like interconnecting multiverse space thing. Odd. You starting powers. You don't start with any powers. You get no starting powers. You do get 10 power points. You don't get any available powers. You have no powers available to you because all your powers are only going to be all your power points are only going to be spent on specific things specific to this arcane background. Power activation. Hexslingers don't cast powers like most other arcane backgrounds. Instead, they spend power points to activate various glowing runes or sigils imprinted on their strange weapon, the hex gun. Critical failure. When a Hexslinger critically fails a shooting roll with the hex gun, whether actually activating a sigil or not, the mystical connection to Merlin's mystical realm stutters. She has enough bullets for the rest of the encounter, but then she's dry and the hex gun no longer functions. This also occurs if she rolls a second critical failure in the same encounter. So basically, like you'll have enough bullets for this encounter unless you roll another time critical failure, in which case you're just done. You need to switch to a melee weapon or something because you're done. The only way to refill the weapon afterwards is via the Ritual of Replenishment. Unfortunately, we do not have the Ritual of Replenishment in this little preview because that'd be giving way too much information. So we don't actually know how that mechanic works unless you go, unless it's in the, I don't think it's in the, let me make sure it's not in the other adventure. Because it might be. I wonder if it's in the Sins of the Father's adventure. Let's see here. I'm going to go to characters. Oh, okay. So it looks like the character. So again, this was in 2019, and it looks like the paladin character is not going to work the same way as it did previously. So yeah, so we should keep that in mind. So it looks like it's going to work a little bit differently than it did then. Or actually, a lot differently from what I've seen. So edges. Hexslingers may not take power edges except for the extra power points, Holy Warrior, and Power Surge. They may take the double tap, rapid fire, and improved rapid fire edge from Savage Worlds, which is really cool. And I imagine that you could theoretically take, unless they're like already in here, you might be able to take some of the edges from the Deadlands book and add them in here because it's the same kind of gun. So I believe there's like some special like pistol things you can do inside of Deadlands that you could just put into this game as well. One of the great things I like about Savage Worlds is that's so modular. You can just take things from other games, other settings, and just pop them in, and it usually you can make it make sense fairly easily. The hex gun, Hexslinger must have her weapon drawn and in hand to activate the sigils. Makes sense. People say, well, it doesn't say I need to have it in hand. And I was like, no, you need to have it in your hand. You need to have one of your hands on this weapon. The hex gun reloads automatically and is always full. Hexslinger does not have to track bullets, and hex guns and their bullets are magic weapons. Sorry. Which is nice. The worst part about doing anything is having to track bullets and be really annoying to track bullets and power points. That'd be super annoying. Other really cool power, retrieval. The Hexslinger can call her weapon to hand by spending 1 power point. This is a free action. The weapon must be within 6 inches. So this is important because it's like if someone tries to get away with it, you can just be like, nope, mine. Or if you drop it or something, like critical fail on something else, you just like drop it or whatever, you can just get it back. That being said, if someone steals it from you and gets way, further away than 6 inches, you're good to go. They can't be stolen, and you can have some problems. As long as they are awake and have their pistol on their person, Hexslingers sense supernaturally evil creatures within 5 inches, though they cannot pick them out of a crowd or negate illumination or other visibility, such as invisibility penalties. So it is a sense, it is not a I see you. That's an important distinction because often people will try to use these kind of powers or abilities to say, oh, I must be able to see this person, depending on how it's described. They're saying, no, you cannot see this person, but you can sense them. So that is important distinction, but also very useful to get a feel on people. Now, let's say that it has to be supernaturally evil, not just normally evil. So like demons and such, they're supernaturally evil. You'll be able to detect that. Hexslingers can also instinctively sense the presence of Merlin's other chosen heroes within 6 inches. What's something else you need to understand about these, what they say so far, is they don't require you to roll to sense. You just do sense. So as a GM, you just know if they come into contact with someone that's supernaturally evil, they sense it. There's no like, do I notice this? It's like, yes, they don't have to ask. You can just tell them. And sometimes we try to keep too many secrets when they have abilities that specifically say, hey, you know this, just let them know it. Okay. That's part of what their abilities are. Don't want to take it away from them. Sigils. Hexslingers gain access to additional powers as they gain ranks. This occurs automatically when they attain the new rank, and should a character gain the arcane background Hexslinger, meaning that they have to meet Merlin to receive it, edge later in their journeys, she gains access to all those sigils of her rank or lower. Now, we only get 2 of them. We get the first sigil, which is accuracy. Hexslinger may spend a power point to re-roll a shooting or damage roll made with their hex gun. And then the second one is sigil thunder seasoned. The Hexslinger spends 1 power point and makes a shooting roll in a cone template, is showing out from the point of the weapon. No damage is caused, but everyone in the template must make a spirit roll at -2 with a raise or be shaken. So there's going to be more edges, sigils, and ritual punishment in the actual book. That being said, let's go ahead and go back up. Let's talk about the Hexagon itself. It has a range of 12, 24, 48, and does damage. Just 2d6 damage, AP 1, rate of fire 1, has shots 6, but it can just automatically reload, so no big deal. Minimum strength D4, weight 3 pounds. This is a single action weapon, and so may be used to fan the hammer. Now, fan the hammer is a edge, I believe, from this book. Not from, and they might be adding it into the Dark Ages book, but point being is that, hey, yeah, you can use some of the things from Deadlands and put them into this game if they don't do it for us. So it does work as a standard weapon of a 2d6 damage, AP 1, but you can also use it, use this magic as well. The question that you might need to ask, unless it answers it for us, I think it does answer it for us because these are supposed to be like magical in nature. But the question is like, is this magic damage? And I believe the answer is yes. It is all magical damage because it's going to keep firing magical bolts, essentially doing 2d6 damage. So yeah, I don't see any big problems with that, but that's kind of exciting. So what do you guys all think of this so far? I think it's very interesting. I don't know how I feel about these like automatically gaining stuff as you rank up. But I think the reason why I'm a little nervous about it is just that it reminds me of D&D, where you get certain things at certain levels. So you get to this level, you get this ability. You don't get a choice, you just get this ability. That being said, it's not removing the element of choice. You can still make a choice. It's just like you just automatically get something on top of it. I think it'd been more fun if you maybe got more sigils early on, but then like you get additional sigils by taking an edge. I don't, there's a part of me that's like a little, I don't know why, but like a little hesitant about giving new stuff away for free. Maybe it's a little bit of fear of power creep, but giving like new stuff away for free, it's like, well, you get this new ability, and you get your edge that you just took as well. But yeah. Heston said it's somewhat similar to how Pathfinder it's somewhat similar to how Pathfinder offers edges upon certain ranks. No, I think it's, from my understanding, it's different because this says you get this new ability as soon as you get that rank. You don't have to take an edge to get these sigils. In Savage Pathfinder, certain you can take edges at certain ranks, but they don't require you to. Like you can take the base class edge in Pathfinder for Savage Worlds and just take that and never take any of the other edges with it. You do not automatically get those edges. At least that's not the way we've been playing. And that's, from my understanding, that's not the intention, is that you don't get those edges automatically. You still have to take them with one of your advances once you meet the requirements for it. So Here, let me just grab a. Actually, no, I probably have a PDF here, so I can just like show you guys instead of going through my book and trying to show you. Where is my resources? All right, here we go. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this real quick. Let's go ahead and get to Barbarian. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and fit with. There we go. So right here, you could just take this Barbarian ability right here, which has like all these other things. And we have Season Barbarian for Powerful Blow, where you get +4 damage on wild attacks instead of +2. You don't just get this when you get Seasoned. You do have to take it as an advance. So once you get to Seasoned, you could spend your first advance on getting this because you are Barbarian, you have that requirement, and now you're Seasoned. But if you don't take it, you don't get this ability. Same thing with all the rest of them. Whereas in this, it's saying you get these automatically. As soon as you level up to this rank, you get as soon as you hit Seasoned, even before you take your advance, you just get the Thunder sigil. And there's this part of me just, I don't know. Again, I don't know have like a good reason for it, but this part of me just like it has like a reason. I don't know if it's a good reason. It just has me a little bit hesitant about getting stuff without choosing to take it. I think it would be kind of more interesting if we just had more sigils that did more things. And if you want more sigils, you just have to take the edge to get them. Or to unlock them. It's like, oh, the sigils on your thing are now unlocked, and you have a better understanding of how to use them. That's fine. That's whatever. Allows you to use more narrative elements to like do it. Even if it's just like, oh, you take the edge, and now you get 2 sigils. Kind of like getting 2 more powers. That'd be interesting too. I don't know if that'd be too strong, but I don't know. Venkel says, I wonder if more arcane backgrounds from Dark Ages will follow the same template of automatically getting abilities. That's a good question. Like I said, I know that they said the Druid is going to be very different from all of the from other arcane backgrounds because they wanted to make sure it worked the way they wanted to, which is interesting. We'll see if we get a little preview of that as well. Again, I am a little bit worried about just a little bit of power creep. Not that power creep should be like a big concern in Savage Worlds, but still. I also just looking over this background edge. I have been trying to think like, is this too strong? Like there isn't any downsides. Except for like you're limited, you're not getting any actual powers, but like you don't get a separate skill. You can just take the shooting skill, which you can still use for other things. You can use shooting for a bow and arrow or a crossbow. The worst thing is the critical failure. We don't know how hard it is to do a ritual of replenishment. So maybe it's like super hard to do, and that's why it's a bad thing. But we'll see. I just have to imagine there's got to be some other sort of downside to this to keep it from being too bonkers. Scholarwork says, compare and contrast to the Huckster Hexslinger, which is the Weird West, which references Doc Holliday discovering rune magic or rediscovering, getting the pure version here, it seems. Interesting. So this is one of the places where I am not able to comment as well because I have not played through or read through enough of this particular book yet. On like the more information on the Harrow. I know like some elements like what they are. I know that they fight demons after they die in their head to come to an agreement essentially on how to control their body and all that stuff, and they're undead. And I know hucksters have to do poker cards for extra magic and stuff, and there's deals to devils and all that. But Hexslingers, I think that they're probably the one I'm the least familiar with. Now I think about it. And maybe the Chi people as well, but Hexslingers definitely. So there's that. So I think I can't speak to all the lore just because I'm not a Deadlands lore expert. Maybe someday I will be, but that's all I can say right now. Hampshire Doom says, "Oh, but it's guaranteed you're not shooting with that gun in any session in which you crit fail." I think. Yeah. It's That's I definitely the idea I'm getting. I don't know what the ritual punishment was going to be, but it's likely that if you ever crit fail with the gun with the weapon, you're probably not going to be able to use it for the rest of the session or the rest of the day or something. Whatever. I don't know how long this ritual of replenishment takes, right? So that could be a really bad thing. So maybe like critical failure is significant in that way. Which means that my one player should never do this because he crit fails all the time. I think he crit failed like 3 times on his casting. And I think he went unconscious in one of our sessions recently because he crit failed too many times on casting. It was like within like 3 rounds. He did like multiple attempts, but yeah, it did not go well. Did not go well. So he should not do this. And you should probably focus on making sure that you can get your shooting as high as possible so that you don't you decrease the risk of crit failing. Sure. Okay. Well, that is all I have to say today about this Kickstarter. I'm still super excited. We've been waiting for this for essentially 6 years. We've been expecting it for 5 years ago, but we've been waiting for it for longer. And it's nice that we're finally getting it. I will say it's just like, okay, get through this Kickstarter, and then we have to wait several months before we actually get this in print. I hope we can get it soon and quickly. Like, I hope it comes quickly, but I know we have lots of other things in the docket to get before then. So yeah, we'll see. All right. Well, that's all I have this week. If you do have any other questions or anything else, go ahead and leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear and talk to you guys about what your expectations are for this product and just hear your excitement. I also would love to hear ideas on what things you'd like to hear me talk about in future episodes. I have Pierce Loom on in October, but other than that, I actually don't have a whole lot of people like scheduled or anything or any certain topics to talk about. So if you have ideas for topics that we could talk about on this show, I'd love to hear them and we can discuss them further. Thank you for your time, everybody. I hope you have a good night, and may all of your dice ace. Cheers, everybody.